Not yet.
I mean, I just clicked it.
Non-sequitur. Your facts are uncoordinated. Non-sequitur. Your facts are uncoordinated. Non-sequitur.
Boom.
Man, I got to tell you, you guys have literally the coolest intro ever.
Well, thank you. We I get bored. I get bored very easily with things, and I'm all the time like playing around with different stuff. And I, for some reason, I saw. I think it was because I was watching the Americans over Christmas break, and I just loved that look that they have. You know, that old propaganda style intro. And I was like, I have to make this happen. So yeah, I think it came out really well.
Who did
Actually,
your soundtrack?
I did. I took.
Did you?
I took O Fortuna from the
Right.
opera,
Yeah.
and then there was a like a Apple's Garage Band has like a the sample tracks or whatever, and I just kept looping things over top of it until I got something that sounded actually somewhat reasonable, and just went with it, and it just stuck.
Dude, it's more than reasonable. It's pretty badass, really.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate that.
And
Um,
hello, Steve.
Well, hello. Yeah,
uh,
You know,
I wish I kind of had that kind of talent. I can only do like certain CGI stuff. Audio, not my thing. Loop tracks and all that stuff. Just couldn't venture a guess to even begin to how to do one of those things.
I wanted to give a shout out to Dave, but unfortunately, apparently he's not with us tonight.
no, if anyone's wondering, whoever made that comment. When was it, that Steve? Was it Monday where somebody was like, it was the night that we debuted the new intro, and somebody was like, we had a hiccup or something, and somebody was like, oh, I bet Kyle's running the show tonight. You jinxed me
Yeah.
because yes, there's you will not appreciate, I don't think, the little pieces that go into what you're seeing on your screen. Each individual thing is a different piece that you have to put in and make sure that it shifts at the right. It's just my blood pressure is through the roof right now. More so than last night during the incel discussion, if that tells you anything.
Yeah, when we say Dave produces, we mean that in every not every literal sense of the word, not just figuratively. I mean, Dave
Yeah,
does productions.
he's
These are events, to say the
he's
least.
he's the unsung hero of the Non-Sequitur Show.
I'll show you what's getting me through. This is what it's come to, and it's probably you probably can't see it because of
Mountain
the
Dew.
the green screen. This is not Mountain Dew Black. It's actually doing this because of the green screen. But
Uh,
when I get stressed out, I do the do for all of that
Oh,
sugar.
hey,
I like Dew.
just a quick FYI. I used to drink Mountain Dew religiously, no pun intended.
Hmm.
Religiously, I drank Mountain Dew every day for many years, and then after I suffered a couple of kidney stones, I literally stopped drinking not only Mountain Dew but all soda altogether. And I was told when I had surgery to remove a 9 millimeter kidney stone that there was
Nine
one
millimeter.
still in my. Yeah,
That's
they
not a
had to
stone. That's a
go in.
rock.
Yeah, they had to go backwards through my plumbing with a fucking lightsaber to get that one. And they told me I had
Desperate.
an MRI. I had an MRI, and they told me that I had a 4 millimeter stone still in my kidney. So they let me know that to expect another one. And that was about 8 or 10 years ago. Funny thing happened about I don't know, 2 months ago. I had a strange pain in my lower abdomen around my right side where I normally have kidney trouble. And So I went to see a urologist, and they did an X-ray, and the X-ray was inconclusive. He found what he called a philebula, which is a calcium deposit around a vein or an artery. So he sent me down to an inexpensive, because I'm a self-pay, I don't have insurance. He sent me down to a self-pay clinic where it was really cheap. I could get a CAT scan. And so I went and had a CAT scan, and the CAT scan came back, and the doctor's office, after they read my CAT scan, told me I had no kidney stones, 0.
Miracle.
And the only thing I can attribute it to is that I changed my diet drastically. I stopped drinking soda completely, and I started drinking what is known as zero water, which is a filter that you can buy at like Target. It's like the best water filtration thing, and it comes with a little it's a TDS meter, which is total dissolved solids, and it tells you what's in your water. It doesn't tell you what's in it. It tells you how many parts per million of minerals it detects. Mm-hmm. And so it's as close to distilled water as you can get. And so all I can say is right now, my last CAT scan, which was 2 months ago, literally told me I had no kidney stones at all.
Well, you contributed to this filter. What if it is like answered prayers?
Well, that's funny because I wasn't the one doing the praying, so I don't know how to verify that.
I'm just saying.
Or just cut back on sodas. I don't drink Pepsi or Coke or Mountain Dew any longer. Occasionally, very, very rarely, like, just like Kyle, you have one of those days, then I'll go get a small liter or something, But I don't drink Pepsi or sodas anywhere near like I used to, not by any stretch of imagination.
I don't drink alcohol anymore, so I have to do something. To basically what tonight is, we decided that we were going to do something a little different this year for the channel. We're actually going to do quite a few things, but the first thing that we are sort of implementing, and the response to it has been overwhelmingly good. I'm actually pretty tickled at the response that we've gotten. But I put out a link to a form on Google that you can go in and fill out. You're passionate about something. You have a topic that's close to you that you're passionate about and that you want to discuss with Steve and I. We're going to do this once a week. You come in. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't have to stick within a certain category of things. But I've gotten several responses so far, and we kind of wanted to just open up something that we had that was special with you guys, the viewers, because we definitely have the best audience out there, and it's really cool to talk to you guys about different subjects. And I'm gonna just give you guys a couple of the responses that I've gotten so far of what people want to come in and talk about. And Steve, you let me know if any of these strike your fancy. Addiction, or things like Anonymous or AA, anxiety, depression, self-esteem, anti-Scientology and activism, how religion stifles advances in parenting and childhood development, YouTube white nationalists, for example, The Daily Show, Face the Nation, and Morocco. I'll discuss anything from moon landings to vaccines, flat earth, of course, religion, God. I won't. There's no topic I won't enter into. I'm a philosopher. Hypnosis, video games, which we'll be doing next. We've got the Astrotheology tonight, which I think is going to be fascinating. Bible, gender roles. So it really it runs the gambit. Civil war. Let's see. Let's do one more. An ethnical society. The blueprint I offer for the foundation from which a truly free and ethical society can emerge. So everybody's got these different things that they want to come talk about, and we're going to start doing this once a week. If you have anything that you're really passionate about or you think would be interesting to come in and chat with Steve and I, you don't have to be, it doesn't have to be your profession. This is sort of just a relaxed conversation that you'll be having with Steve and I. So don't be scared. Put it out there. The link to that form is in the description below. You can check it out there. It's also in the community section, I believe, on our YouTube page. So you can go there and get in touch with us that way.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of that list I would be interested in doing. Even the first one you mentioned, like the Addiction Anonymous, right? Things like that. Those programs dealing with AA and especially dealing with Narcanon, which is a specific program from the Church of Scientology that claims to have unreal success in getting people off drugs. And I think it's a complete scam myself. And I also have a couple issues with AA. The way they do their 12 step, as far as you have to like give yourself over to some higher power that make you feel like you're unempowered to do something. I know it must be very difficult to quit addiction. I mean, I quit smoking after 25 years. I did it on my own. I didn't give myself over to some higher power. I didn't say I couldn't do it. I by will quit cold turkey. Now I know alcohol is just as difficult, but I've gone years without. I mean, I went a year without drinking at all. I mean, alcohol is not my thing. Caffeine, coffee, I probably would have a hard time giving up. But to say that you have to give yourself up to a deity or to any kind of higher power, I have an issue with that. So I think that would be my most interesting topic for whoever was that suggested that.
Excellent.
Steve,
go ahead.
I'm glad you mentioned that. And just real quick to interject, you mentioned the 12-step program, and you have to give yourself to a higher power. That's partly what I'm going to be talking about, and it's funny that it is in fact a 12-step program. So I'll cover that when we get started.
And I want to say a big thank you to Aaron. If you follow the schedule, originally tonight we were going to have, and there was a part of me that didn't think this was going to actually pan out because of who it was involving and what happened last time he was here. But we had Nathan Thompson, who is notorious for hunting down that astronaut in it was Starbucks, right, Steve? That he
Starbucks, yeah.
Yeah. So he confronted a NASA employee in Starbucks. He went viral, TMZ, all that picked him up. We had him on here. It was actually our first show that we ever did, and it was him and Red's Rhetoric, and it didn't go very well. The guy's just a complete. He's the definition of an idiot. I mean, like I said, a toaster would have more purpose in life and a higher IQ than Nathan Thompson. Well, he had gotten into an exchange with another guy named oh man, don't tell me, cognitive response. Is that what it is? Cognitive clear
dissonance.
No, it's like clear cognition.
Clear cognition, isn't it?
Yeah, clear cognition. And he came to us and said, I've got Nathan Thompson. We're going to do a debate. I said, oh, well, if he's willing to come back, fine. Well, Nathan Thompson blew a fuse and cussed him out and blocked him, so that kind of fell through, which is unfortunate because it would have been funny. But I think we're going to have a better conversation with this come out of it anyway. So I want to thank you, Aaron, for willing to come literally last second and hang out with us. But this, I think, is going to be really cool because we're going to get to meet a lot of people, talk about different topics, and meet the people who watch the show. So, Aaron, can you kind of tell us how you came across the show and like what was your first episode?
Oh fuck! I couldn't. I don't think I could possibly remember the first episode. I've been following you guys and subscribed to your channel for maybe 6 to 8 months. Maybe a little bit more. I found you guys because I was in the process of just looking and watching atheist debate type videos. I was doing the Matt Dillahunty and the Sam Harris thing, and just really digging on the Christopher Hitchens and all the debates, the religious debates. I was fascinated by that stuff for a while. And I think I found you guys while I was engaged in that sort of YouTubery, if I could just make up a word on the spot.
Mm-hmm.
It works.
So that's pretty much where I found you. I couldn't possibly remember the first show. Couldn't possibly remember.
We don't remember.
I do remember.
Show.
So, and I'm also, I abhor the flat Earth. And I do enjoy the entertainment of watching a flat earther get his ass handed to him. So since you guys do a lot of that, I'm on board with all that shit. So I really love what you guys do. I like the way you handle yourselves. I like the way Steve is on board and sitting in the background and ready to pounce when somebody has a logical fallacy. I like the way Kyle is cool and calm and collective until somebody gets offensive and out of line, and Kyle will quick to tell you to fuck off and block you and mute you and kick you out of the. So I mean, you guys are totally respectful and respectable. I like the way you handle your show, and I like the way you're no nonsense. I like the way you're good moderators to the debates that you handle. I'm surprised at the ability of you both to acquire so many interviews and so many debates. You guys must be running ragged all day long with emails and communication, just trying to set everything up. So props to both of you. And I was going to give a shout out to Dave, and I'll go ahead and do it anyway, even though he's not here, the unsung hero, the background man who makes it all happen. So I'm really impressed with what you guys are doing. You are quite literally my favorite YouTube channel to date. So bravo to you. You guys are growing. You guys are growing fast. You guys are growing fast, and there's a good reason for that. You guys are doing some amazing shit over here. So good on you.
Well,
I can tell you right now, I've had a few years of handling myself, so I've gotten pretty decent at it.
I have not. I had to jump in, but I am now. I'm officially incel public enemy number one.
They hate you.
They hate me.
Hate you guys don't even know the vitriol.
Oh yes,
hate
I am the talk of the town in their little
woman.
But however, let me just say this though: people think that after last night that was going to be it for me. I have just now getting started with going in on this forum. I have actually, since last night, I've gotten contacted by not one, not two, not three, not four, not five, not six, not seven, not even 8, but 9 different incels wanting to. It runs the gambit from either agreeing with what I said, wanting to debate me on the purpose of gay people in society. It's just all over the place. So
the purpose.
Yeah, the purpose.
I love that.
They're great. They're great. But interesting story though. Their biggest. I'm gonna say this, and then we're gonna move into the next topic. But I just think this is hilarious. I've gotten in the midst of all of this to be friends with the subreddit moderator called Incel Tears. Now, this is the biggest trigger of incels out there. Like, this subreddit eats them, like, parodies everything. That it's hilarious what they do. But in the forum, they are so triggered by Incel Tears. So Incel Tears sent me a message and was like, would you like to have me come on for a show, and we can talk about kind of what we do. Oh, that sent them into a frenzy. I mean, it was like sharks and chum in a boat. It's hilarious. So I can't wait for him to come on and for that to be a thing. But yeah, we're not done.
Well, hey,
buckle up.
Well, hey, just as a quick thought, you guys have merch, right? You guys have some merch.
Oh, well.
Limited.
Well,
Hey,
we need to be better. We need to be better.
Well,
Yeah.
it just made me think. If you do have merch, get yourself a mug that says "Incel Tears."
That's actually funny. That's actually really funny. I'm gonna get a shirt with Chad just across the chest. University of Chad. All right, so I was going through the list of the people that we had when they sent in different what they were passionate about, and this one stuck out to me because of the name, and I'm really glad this is going to be our first one because I think this is going to be fascinating, even from what little bit I heard today speaking with him on the phone. So Astrotheology, Aaron, you want to give a little introduction to yourself and then tell us what exactly astrotheology is?
As for myself, I'm really just like a lot of you guys. I'm just a guy who is interested in various things, and thanks to this wonderful thing we call the internet, where everybody has access to all the information you could possibly want and more, I just dove headlong into the things that interested me. My channel is Rufus Cat 2 Whose Name with a question mark. There's a long story. I won't go into why it's all that, but I used to run a podcast, and I still kind of do. I've got a co-host and actually 2 co-hosts. And the name of that podcast is Conspiracy or Not, Here We Come, where we do kind of what you do. We talk about all kinds of subjects, whether it's conspiracy based or not. I've had some pretty interesting guests on. I've had a couple of heavy hitters, a couple of authors and world-renowned researchers. I have not done nearly as well as you guys have done. I have not put the time in that you guys have done. I just, I'm a regular guy with a job, and I don't have all day, every day to just spend researching new topics and researching new guests and spending all the time that you guys spend. I don't know how you do it. I really don't. Really, my hat is off to you with what you guys are doing, the amount of content you put out, the amount of people that you have on. It's amazing to me.
Lots of cocaine.
But that's what I do. As for the primer of astrotheology, it is, as the name implies, it's astro, which is not just astronomy, but astrology and theology, the combination of those two words. So astrotheology basically means that the theology, which is religion, is basically based on everything that happened in the sky was based on things that were witnessed by people on Earth. They saw things happening in the sky, and then they anthropomorphized the things that they saw. They attributed human qualities to the sun, the moon, the stars, the comets, the planets, and everything that they witnessed in the sky. And one of my very best friends actually put it quite bluntly. He said it was their HBO, right? Because I don't know, a million years ago, they didn't have all the stuff that we have, TVs and cell phones and radio, whatnot. So that was what they had. Not only was that pretty much all they had for their entertainment and their water cooler discussions, but it was also important because it became readily obvious to ancient people that in order to grow crops, and or even if you're a hunter-gatherer and you're not actually growing crops per se, still knowing when various things are ready to harvest, right, for your food source. This is your survival. It was quite readily obvious that the seasons played a role, and the sun played a major role, and so they started tracking the sun, the moon, the stars, and this became a pivotal, important aspect of their lives all around the world. I don't care what culture it was. Everyone readily recognized when the sun starts to go lower in the sky that winter is coming. When the sun starts to rise higher in the sky, summer is coming. Okay, we can plant our crops. Now it's time to harvest our crops. And then they orchestrated festivals and rituals around all of the stuff that they saw in the sky. So that's the base of astrotheology. And furthermore, astrotheology actually, we're going to get into a little bit tonight, not only the religious aspect, but like I told Kyle in the email and on the phone, is that basically almost every story you've ever heard in your life is based on things that happen in the sky. Everything from Alice in Wonderland, from Puff the Magic Dragon to Jesus Christ, has happened in the sky and was anthropomorphized by people and given human attributes, and then stories and heroes and maidens and quests and conquests were all attributed to these things because of the human attributes that were given to the things that we saw in the sky.
Excellent. That's how you do an intro to a topic right there. If you're wondering, guys, I know that we didn't get to the other half of the super chats. Just to tell you guys quickly, I'll read those following tonight's discussion. So I'll get those that I missed last night because of the other debate. We'll do those tonight. So, Aaron, I guess take us away.
Okay, give me 1 second. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the folder, which is a copy of the folder that I sent to you. Since Dave is not here, I guess you're going to be the guy to go through the slides for us.
Oh, please be with us. Please be with us.
Praise be.
Praise be.
I think probably the first or best place to start would be let's go to the folder labeled Analema. Second folder in the list after Abraham.
Okay. I tell you what, the best thing to do probably is to tell me what picture that is, because it pulled it just pulled the images in to this program. You see what I'm saying?
They're not. Oh, so they're not organized. You don't have them organized the way I do.
I have them like organized from where I unzipped your folder, but in order to get them into vMix, I had to take them out of there. It wouldn't take them all as in, one folder broken down. So I had to take
Oh,
the pieces and put them in. But I tried to keep them in the
oh,
same order that the
okay.
folder was in. Hopefully
Oh,
that
well,
works.
yeah, hopefully. Okay, so let's see. The first image, we'll call it it's the Analema cross. It's the point on August is the title of that image.
Okay. Oh man. Annalena Cross. Tell me one more.
Analema, A-N-A-L, anal.
Okay.
I know,
Oh, I
I
can
know
find
you
that.
know that word.
It'll look like a figure eight or a cross, depending on which. I don't know the image, but an amalema is the figure eight that the sun makes over a period of a year due to
I see it. Okay.
the tilt of the Earth.
Bravo, bravo, Steve. Yes, sir. Okay, excellent. Bravo, Steve. Not
Right,
very many
more
people know that.
specifically, well, I know what amalema is.
We can get through this. We can get through this. This is going to be fun.
Okay, so not a lot of people are aware of what the analema is, and just so as a good starting point, this image shows somebody who set up a camera at one location and took a photograph of the sun at the same location at the same time of day once per week. So every week, let's just say arbitrarily on a Monday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, they took their camera, put it on the porch at the same spot, and took a picture of the sun. And then they combined all the images, and this is what you get is the analema. This is the path that the sun traces through the sky through the course of the solar cycle. So, Kyle, you can just scroll through all of the analema pictures, and I'll just talk as you go. There's
Okay.
no specific order as far as this batch of images. So this is an image of a group of analemas that were taken by several people, and in the top second from the right is a globe that shows an analema. So if you have an old world map or an old globe, you'll see this weird figure eight thing in somewhere usually located out in the Atlantic Ocean. Bottom right, far bottom right is another image also, I think on a globe or a map. So you'll find these figure eight patterns. Go ahead and go to the next slide. You'll find these on old world maps. What's interesting is here's a crop circle. You can go ahead and go again, just click through the next one. Just as just an interesting slide to look at for anybody who's interested. Here's a good picture. I want you to be aware that the moon also has its own analema. So if you did the same thing, you set up a camera, took a picture of the moon at the same time of day, once per day, because the lunar cycle is only 28 days. So if you did this once a day, you'll see that not only you'll see the phases of the moon, but it makes this weird figure eight pattern. It has its own analema pattern. Okay. So these are some of the things that were noticed by the ancient people, which was one of the first things that became obvious. Go ahead and go to the next slide. There's an old world map image of an image of an analema. Go ahead and go to the next one. This is actually in Anunshag, Sweden. This is an image of a stone creation, like a petroglyph. Crap. What's the word for stone structure?
Megalith?
You know it. Yes, sir.
Megalith.
Thank you. It's a megalith structure. It's not a building, obviously, but this is an analem built on the ground, put in there by stones. It's very, very ancient. I don't know how old, but this is in Sweden. You can go to the next slide.
Okay.
This has nothing to do with the analema, and it got into the wrong folder. I will talk about this real quick, just real quick. This is an image of a dual crater on the moon, and as you can see, there's a straight line between the two. This relates to everything that I'm going to talk about. Has nothing to do with the analema, but I just wanted to point out that this is absolutely not an impact crater. This is an electrical discharge. So go ahead and go to the next slide.
All right.
Wait, real quick, are you an electric universe theorist?
I am.
Okay.
I am 100% electric universe.
Oh, that's
Okay.
it. Now
That,
that could be its own other
that's gonna
show
be
too.
good.
That could be its own
Yes.
other.
I've been meaning to do a show on that. So,
Steve's wanting to
so you're
talk to
yes.
yeah, that's
So
excellent.
you're into the
Oh well,
Thunderbolts project and Starfire and
completely.
okay.
And as a matter of fact, part of what I will talk about, and I'm sorry I didn't. I put together like 105 pictures that I sent you guys, and we're going to try to get through them all if possible. But what I did not include was a whole other folder involving Mars. I'm putting together. I'm getting in the process of gathering images and video to make my own video for my channel regarding there's a theme that we see in movies where the villain character is very, very often depicted with a giant scar on his face or forehead. And I wish I could do a screen share right now. I could show you what I'm talking about. But some of you may know, like if you're a Star Wars fan, the villain, what's his name? Zog? No.
Zod.
Say again?
Zod? Zod?
No.
Darth
No,
Vader.
no.
Superman.
No,
Palpatine?
it's one of the more. No, it's one of the more and more recent ones. Um,
Darth Maul.
the Last Jedi. What's that alien character with the giant head who sits on that throne? The son of Han Solo is it's his mentor.
Where's
Damn, I
Paul
can't remember his.
Giamatti?
Yeah, right. Okay. Anyway, all these characters that you'll see in a lot of the more recent movies have this giant scar on their forehead, and I'm recognizing a pattern here, and I'm pretty sure that that pattern of villains with scars on their forehead are directly related to Mars with the Valles Marineris.
Okay.
Because
By the way, Snoke. They're saying in the live chat,
Snoke,
is
yes,
who you're referring to.
yes, it was Snoke. Thank you.
I don't
It
even
just left
recognize
me
the
for a
name. That
moment.
tells you how much I know about the Last Jedi. Wow.
Yeah, it's Snoke. But anyway, Mars is obviously the god of war, and there's a reason that the god of war has a giant scar on his forehead. There's even Bible passages. I may even recite a couple of them to you tonight regarding the head wound and the scar on the forehead. But this is a common theme that you'll see in movie villains because the god of war receives a giant wound on his head. And that is, again, relates back to astrotheology because people on Earth witnessed a close encounter that Mars had with another planetary body. The electric universe people think it was Venus, which was the body in question. And so there was a giant electrical discharge between the two, which created Valles Marineris in a matter of minutes or hours. And that scar, which goes 1/3 of the way around the planet Mars, is the scar that is on the god of war, mind you, and who's sometimes the hero and sometimes the villain. And that's why I think I'm seeing this pattern of villains in movies with these giant scars on their faces.
Yeah. Now that comes from Immanuel Velikovsky's work, like Worlds in Collision, right? I mean, you're positing that Venus had been ejected as a comet from Jupiter, came in nearer to the sun. Was this okay? Was it Saturn? I pretty sure the original was Jupiter, but you believe it's Saturn?
I think it's Saturn.
Okay, I thought Velikovsky said Jupiter, but I read that book in high school, so it's been many, many years. But yeah, so basically, Venus was ejected by one of the gaseous planets, and then it came closer to the sun, and then it caused electrical discharges to be incurred on the moon. And so these craters and these things that we're seeing are because of actual electric discharges rather than natural formations due to plate tectonics or formations of the planet. Okay.
I am lost.
He's an electric universe theorist. This is some of the things that they posit. Yeah.
I don't.
Go ahead, Kyle.
I was going to say what. I know this is this is sidetracking, but for those out there who may not know what the electric universe entails, could one of you explain what that is?
Go ahead. If not, I can.
The electric. Feel free, otherwise I will.
Well, the electric
I'll do what
universe
I.
theory was something. It basically stemmed from a combination of Immanuel Velikovsky's work, who wrote a book called World Collisions back in the 50s or 60s. I don't remember exactly the decade.
It was
But
published in 1950.
okay, in 50s. And basically, they believe that everything in the universe is caused by electromagnetic radiation or electrical discharges rather than gravity. For example, like the sun is not a fusion reactor. The sun is not comprised of hydrogen being converted into helium over a four-step process. To them, it's actually an actual transistor, believe it or not. They think that the sun actually exists because of a principle similar to what we find in an NPN or PNP transistor. And this transistor theory of the sun is basically why it causes so much heat to be produced from it, but it's not because of fusion. But there's a whole bunch of different things that electric universe theorists will say is the case. But basically, like
we
the
have
moon,
one, let's
all
ask,
the craters.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Since we have one, let's see what he subscribes to, just real briefly, because I'm interested now. I'm new to this.
Well, Steve is correct on everything he said so far, but like he said right there before you interjected, that there's a whole lot more to it. Like, for instance, when I mentioned Mars, the Valles Marineris, which is this enormous freaking gash that goes literally a 1/3 of the way around the planet of Mars, was not caused at all by water erosion. In fact, there are telltale signs, if you look very closely at images of the Valles Marineris, that some of the offshoots and side channels and side canyons, they have literally no inlet, no outlet. The walls are scalloped, and there's the entire Valles Marineris has no water inlet source, and there's literally, we're talking over 1 million cubic miles of material was removed from this canyon, and there's no delta, there's no outlet, there's nowhere where all that material had went to. And yet today, to this very day, we still are receiving, for some fucking reason, we still meteorites. So the postulation is that Mars as a planet came very close to another planet, and that there was electrical differential, meaning that there was a huge discharge. One was more positive or one was more negative than the other, and there was a huge arc, like a static electricity arc, and it was so big and so massive that it literally excavated the entire Valles Marineris within, I don't know, minutes or hours.
So here's like I said, I don't want to get too sidetracked, but my initial question is, if that is true, why? What's the benefit, I guess, of covering that up, or positing something different, like the standard story? Like, what's
it's not so much a benefit of covering it up. It's pretty much what you would see as typical standard operating procedure in almost every area of academia. That there are people's lives and livelihoods are on the line. People have jobs. They have incomes, they have grants and funding that they rely on for their jobs and their income and their livelihoods. And I forget who, there's a kind of a famous quote, it's right on the tip of my tongue, who said that new ideas don't usually, are not, usually not popular until the old, the old guard dies off, and that then the younger generation start picking up the new ideas, something like that. I totally trashed and butchered that quote.
I get the gist though.
But the idea is, when you have an idea that goes against the grain completely, when you have a theory or an idea that may or may not be true, regardless of whether it's true, and your idea is so strongly going against the mainstream grain that you can't get a foothold, you can't get an ear, you can't get publication, you can't get funding, and that's because everybody else has their livelihoods to depend on, basically.
I have so many questions now. So many. Like I said, I'm glad you said this, because Steve has mentioned several times that he's wanted to do a show.
Yeah, I've got some astrophysics friends that I wanted to bring in on it. Well, the biggest thing I find about EU is that they just outright deny gravity. General theory relativity is bullshit to them.
Oh.
Well,
No,
yeah, they kind of
no.
do. I mean, they think that GR is wrong, but it's not a metric tensor. They think that it's actually due to electrostatic differentials.
Well, sure, they think
It's
it's
a
a
big difference.
byproduct of electromagnetism.
That's a
They
huge
think it's a
difference in the
byproduct
temperature space.
of well, whether or not it's curving space-time or not, I can't speak to that. All I can say is that they postulate that the source of the vector velocity or the energy required for gravity to be what it is actually comes from electromagnetism. As far as they're concerned, literally everything in the universe is some aspect of electricity and electrical activity.
Yeah, and
Just like you
they
said, that
deny.
they think.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I was
Well,
going to
just
say
like you
that
said, that they.
we have a
Sorry,
weird
there's a.
lag. Go ahead. I really,
The,
I
the,
hear the lag too. I apologize. Yeah, go ahead and go.
well, it's just like you said that they think that the sun and stars are basically capacitors that basically receive their energy through electricity from the electrical plasma filaments that run all around the universe, and that it's not a fusion reactor, and that the source of the energy that powers the sun does not come from fusion reaction from within the sun.
Well,
And
well, they
you
think
know,
it's
there's actually.
well. Hang on. Now
Go
they
ahead.
think there's a transistor theory of the Earth. The transistor theory of the Sun, which actually posits that there's actually tunneling going on. That it's actually a transistor, but there's a capacitive theory too. But the capacitor theory is not how the Sun works. In the EU theory, capacitance deals with the positive charge of the Sun and the negative charge of the solar wind, and that acts as a capacitance differential between the two. I mean, I've looked into this topic, and I mean, they're really kind of out there, bizarre topics. I've actually submitted some of these papers to astrophysics friends of mine. They're very difficult to read, especially the one on transistor theory sun.
Where does it get its energy from?
It gets its
Electromagnetic
energy
radiation?
from electrical currents that are naturally occurring within the universe. And
What happened? Well, hang on. What happened was originally the reason why this was posited because they didn't understand why the corona of the sun was a little bit hotter than the sun itself. They didn't understand the way the dynamic was for the temperature differentials across the sun and in the sun's atmosphere in the corona. And we've sent a Parker probe up there to try to figure some of this out, but we think we figured it out. And back in 2016, they discovered what's called microflares, and they found that these microflares might be adding heat to the system, causing it to be higher temperature than the surface of the sun. So there's an explanation for it. But when Velikovsky wrote all this stuff, he was going by very old, by our standards now, data, right? He only had a certain amount of data to go by. I think Velikovsky was somebody who really wanted to come up with ideas. I don't think he did anything that was considered to be woo-woo for him. There's something called the Velikovsky incident, which I'm sure you're familiar with, and he was investigated for all this. But I think that he really was trying to be a scientist. What's that?
Is that when they were trying to burn his books, like literally burn his
Yeah,
books?
yeah. They vilified him. But I mean, going into the Velikovsky incident, you can find that he really was a scientist trying to come up with ideas, but he only had limited information back then. We didn't understand these things of the sun as we do now. But now we actually have evidence where we don't even have to posit something like EU. Or we're getting really off topic. This has happened to be a topic that happened to Lily. Actually.
Well, I'll be happy to come back and have this.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I'll be happy to come back and have this discussion. Although I'm certainly no expert, I'm certainly no physicist, but I have a fair understanding of what they're talking about, and I've got a fair amount of information and I've gathered some stuff, and some part of my slideshow involves some screenshots that I've taken from some of their presentations.
I have one final question on this before we move on. The biggest annoyance with anything that runs on electricity is when the power goes out. Is this ever a possibility with the electric universe? And what happens when the currents aren't running so well?
Well, if the
I would
EU
imagine
had their way, they could just be Tesla, right? Just tell them, invoke Tesla's ideas.
No, I'm serious. Like, what do they say? Like, if some interference or something happens where there's no more energy going to this, like, what happens?
if there's no more energy. I'm sorry. Refine your question.
That's a steep task to ask. If the source of the energy is no longer putting out energy, like it can't be infinite, right? The energy source can't be infinite.
Well, why not?
That's I guess that's
Well,
my
they
question.
they believe you
Can
got
it
to
be?
remember they believe in over unity, which means over unity a device is a device that actually has more power going out than coming in, right? So they actually believe the second law of thermodynamics doesn't really apply in certain situations. So they actually think you can make a device that can be a perpetual motion machine or have infinite amount of energy.
All I know is there is a pile of comments and public statements made by astrophysicists and NASA scientists who say, oh, we didn't expect that. We didn't think that was possible. And at the same time, on the other side of the fence, the EU physicists and researchers and scientists are saying not only did we expect it, but we predicted it. Like when we crashed that probe into, what was it, that meteor, that comet that we went and chased after, and we crashed our part of the probe went and ejected, and part of the probe went and crashed into it. Wall Thornhill predicted that there would be a flash of light and electrical discharge before contact, and that's exactly what happened, because the comet itself was electrified, and that's why you see the jets of gas that they say are like steam and shit coming off of it. As it approaches the sun, it gets warm, and then it has these little gaseous ejections that are observed through telescopes. And Wall Thornhill is saying, no, that's all part of how an electrical comet would react as it came close to the transistor, which is our sun.
I will say
You're
it's
talking
cool
about
to think
comet.
of
You're talking about
electric
comet
comets.
67P, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
I think so.
Well, we have to have you back on because I'm interested now. This is new to me. Okay.
Okay.
I've been trying to get him interested into this. I keep telling him, dude, we got to do something on EU.
Oh, well, when we get done, because I've got some of my slides that I've sent Kyle are screenshots that I've taken from the EU workshops and lectures, and as part of, because a lot of what they talk about is actually based on what I'm talking about, which is astrotheology, which are things that humans on Earth witnessed in the sky. So when Velikovsky talks about Venus being ejected from Saturn and coming in close contact with other planetary bodies like Mars, huge electrical discharge is taking place, carving the Valles Marineris out of Mars within hours or minutes. This is the kind of shit that people on Earth witnessed. This is why Mars is the god of war. This is why he has the scar. This is why he's Scarface. This is why villains in movies often are depicted with giant wounds on their face or forehead. So it's all interrelated.
But also, according to Velikovsky, the Earth rotated. Well, not rotated, but revolved around Saturn. It was a moon of Saturn at one
We might
time.
as well just turn this into the electric universe chat now.
There's so much
That's
on this
true.
topic, dude. It's just
Yeah.
you have no
It's
idea,
huge.
Kyle. It's a very bizarre theory that was outdated and antiquated like 50 years ago, but people still buy into it. And there's a whole group of scientists that do. They're called the Thunderbolts Project.
Yeah, absolutely. So anybody interested in the subject, go check out. And they have a YouTube channel. They've got a website and YouTube channel. They have conferences and symposiums and lectures, and they've got full-length documentaries. And it's really great. It's a really great channel. It's my second favorite channel besides you guys is Thunderbolt Project on YouTube. So they're pretty awesome.
Awesome. Okay, well, we will book this. I promise you guys, because I'm interested now. So this will happen, but let's dive. Let's try to stay on Steve. Just
Well, it's going to be
Keep-
difficult because
keep it cool,
the
Steve,
electric
and-
universe.
These are probably going to be related with each other, Kyle. That's the problem.
They're absolutely
Yeah.
these two subjects of what I'm talking about in the electric universe and Velikovsky's theories are absolutely related. Because as I said, this all has to do with what people on Earth saw in the sky happening. They saw it, and they anthropomorphized the planetary bodies. Saturn is Kronos, Zeus is Jupiter, Mars is Mars, unless you're Greek, and then he's Ares. So there's that. They're all related. All this stuff is very, very related because literally there was some shit happen. Basically, the bottom line is that our current solar system is not as calm and steady and as it always has been. It was very vastly different in the not so distant past. People saw it, they wrote it down. There are petroglyphs, hieroglyphs, writings, and religions based on the shit that they saw in the sky as a result of what we're talking about.
Cool.
Okay, so right now this image you have from Egypt, the warmer palette. On the right side image is basically an analemma depicted with two lions. Their heads are extended, their necks are extended, creating an analemma. You can go ahead and jump to the last slide.
That was that was the last one that I had in here.
Oh,
what is
okay.
the one that you're looking for look like?
Oh, well, I was going to go ahead and move to the Ouroboros, or the Milky Way.
Okay, I can pull that up. Do that manually.
So I just want to set a couple of primers before we get too deep into this discussion. I want people to be aware of a couple of things. First, the analemma is one. This is an image of the Milky Way. It's not looking very clear on the screen, but it is what it is. This is basically the symbol of the serpent eating its own tail. So this is a pretty common and pretty well-known symbol of the Ouroboros. You might usually see it as a circle. Sometimes, very occasionally, you'll see it as a fish, particularly if you're looking at ancient Hebrew images. Sometimes, if you're in Asia, there's one where somebody traced out the serpent. So basically what you're looking at is the center of the Milky Way galaxy, and it looks like a serpent eating its own tail. So this is the Ouroboros. It's known as the Earth Shaker. It's also known as the Earth Encircler. Right now it's on kind of like a 45-degree angle to the horizon, but over the course of a year, the Milky Way galaxy settles and becomes level or horizontal with the horizon, and that's why it's known as the Earth Encircler. This is the symbol of the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. This is the serpent who eats its own tail. It does not require sustenance because it lives on itself, and so that's where the symbology of the Ouroboros comes from. And then since you have, this is going to be a little bit tough because I had all these organized in files. So let's see. You can go ahead and click through what's left of the images of the Ouroboros or the Milky Way just to get past that.
Okay.
And
this one?
Yep. There's basically just a screenshot. If you just did a Google search for Ouroboros images, sometimes it shows up as the figure 8 on its side, which is the infinity symbol, which is the same as the circle. It has no start, it has no end. So those are just the symbols of the Ouroboros, which basically, and by the way, if you're in the Asian culture, you might see this particular image as being a crocodile or a dragon, but usually it's depicted as a serpent eating its own tail. So just keep in mind that the dragon and the serpent, the great dragon, the great serpent, these are tales of basically anthropomorphized, or what's the other word? Crap. I was just talking to somebody about this the other day. When you see something in the clouds, it's what's
the
that
P
word?
word, Steve.
Pareidolia. Thank you. Pareidolia. So this is pareidolia. This is, they look up, they see the Milky Way, and somebody says, "Oh, look, it looks like a snake eating its tail." So there it goes. So that's pretty much the source of how these things get going. Basically, just another image of the Milky Way, the center of the Milky Way. And by the way, as a side note, just for fun, did you guys know what happened on 2012 when everybody said the world was going to come to an end, the Mayan calendar thing? Do you guys know what actually happened that day?
I gained
December
20 pounds.
25th, 2012. I think I was having sex that day, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Do you know what happened that day? Because very, very few people are aware of what happened.
Mm-mm.
The 26,000-year cycle of the precession of the equinox came to a close and started over again at the moment the sun set. And by the way, it's not the 25th, it's the 21st on the solstice.
Yeah.
The sun
21st.
on the 21st, 2012, and the sun was directly in line between the Earth and the center of the Milky Way galaxy. which was the end and new beginning of the Mayan calendar, which is a 25,920 year cycle.
Now that you say that, I did hear. So what did it? What did it? It went from what to what in terms of the procession? Like what?
We went from Pisces to Aquarius. This is the dawning of the right, the age of
Right.
Aquarius. That's what happened
Mhm.
that day. We went from one zodiacal house to the next. And by the way, just keep in mind that the house that the zodiac is, they're known as houses. So when you read the Bible and Jesus's disciples ask him, "What do we do when you're gone?" He says, "There's going to be a guy with a pitcher of water. Follow him into the house." Well, he's talking about Aquarius. Jesus represents Pisces, and that age has come to an end, and the new age of Aquarius begins. That's the age of Aquarius, the water bearer. So when Jesus says there will be a man carrying a pitcher of water, follow him into the house. In fact, I've got that quote right here just for fun. No, I don't. It's in a different file.
See, I'm an Aquarian, and all Aquarians don't believe in astrology, according to astrology. So, yeah, we're skeptics on that. So, it works, I guess.
Well, there are other Bible passages, like, for instance, in Colossians 3:2, it says, "Set your minds on things that are above, not on things that are on the earth." And then here's another passage that's interesting from Judges 5, verse 20. It says, "From the heavens the stars fought, from their courses they fought against Sisera." So there are multiple passages in the Bible that talk about things in the sky. I mean, what is it? In Genesis, God put the stars in the sky for signs and seasons, right? That's for you to pay attention to.
And you're just so that we're clear and everybody watching is clear, because I asked you this question on the phone today. You're using the Bible as a historical account to kind of give kind of an explanation or to lend towards what their customs were, not as an actual holy text that contains
No,
the
correct.
details of. Okay, yeah.
No, correct. I mean, I don't believe in God, okay? I didn't get into, my early upbringing as a Pentecostal. I was raised in a Pentecostal church, okay? I've been through the creepy rituals. You and I talked on the phone about that. So no, I'm definitely on the side of atheist. In fact, I'm kind of a firebrand atheist, and I'm definitely a mythicist. I don't believe Jesus existed. I don't believe Mary existed. Abraham, all of the patriarchs, all of the major characters of the Bible, I don't believe they existed. Of course, every now and then the Bible mentions things that did exist, like kings and pharaohs and towns. So those things did exist. So there are microscopic little tidbits, little gems of truth and historical facts that are in the Bible. That's true. But all the vast majority of all the tales and all the stories and all the creepy weird magic and the zombies, none of that is true. None of that is true.
So, just an initial question: how would somebody who is writing the Bible back then, and you brought the example of Jesus, with the he represented Aquarius, you said, right? Or Pisces?
Jesus is Pisces. That's why he's the fish.
Okay,
He's
so
associated with fish.
how would they know that we're getting ready to go from that zodiac house to the next?
If the only answer I can come up with is somehow the Mayans, for instance, they were well aware of a 25,920 year cycle. So how do you become aware of a 25,920 year cycle?
Well, is that
So
because
I'll
they were
put the
aware of it? Is that because their codex is only the way their codexes were? It happened to end on that particular thing. I mean, the way the Mayans did their codexes, if you
so
look
what
at
you're
them,
saying
it
is
happened to be at 29,000 something. It's just a matter of the type of number structure that they use.
so
Because
what
they
you're
didn't use
saying is
a
it's
base
just
10 system.
so 25,920 years is a rather specific number. What you're suggesting is that it may be coincidence that the winter solstice, the sun set directly between the Earth and the center of the Milky Way galaxy.
No,
So
I don't know how
somehow,
it correlates to the. I don't know how it correlates to the astronomical. But the way it ended, it just started. It wasn't meant to end. The Mayan Codex doesn't exactly end. It just begins.
No, exactly.
Again,
No, exactly. There was no ending. There's no end of the world. There's no catastrophe. It was just the end of one cycle and the beginning of another.
I think he's
But
asking.
the cycle.
I'm sorry.
No, but the cycle is literally a 26,000-year cycle. It's the entire procession of the equinox. It's the whole wobble of the Earth.
Right, because of
it's the whole
right.
entire wobble.
Yep.
And by the way,
right.
By the way, since we're on the wobble is it makes a 360-degree circle, and it starts over, just like the Mayan calendar says, and the zodiacal sign, the whole thing starts over. But the axial, let's just say the North Pole axis, makes a complete circle as it goes around its 26,000-year wobble. Do you know how many years it takes for 1 degree of precession?
2,160 years.
No, that's
for 12,
one.
It's for 12 houses for one house. Because you have 26,000 years and it's 12 houses, so it's 2,160 years per house. But I don't remember what it is for 1 degree of precession.
1 degree of precession is 72 years. So, if you think of the Muslims who think they're going to get 72 virgins, what we're talking about is Virgos. 72
1 degree
Virgos.
of precession is 72 years? That doesn't sound right
1
to me.
degree
that is correct.
Do the math.
Is it really?
Divide 25,920 divide by 360
I'll
degrees.
take your word for it. It sounds awfully high for only 77 years.
72 years, you get 1 degree of precession.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But ultimately, every year but that's the thing. Every year, you get all of the houses of the zodiac. They come and they go. But the Virgin Mary is the key one because the sun is born in the Virgo constellation. And I'll get to that once we get to that slide or group of slides.
Aaron, let me interject real quick. I think to go back to the Mayan thing, I think what you were saying, or you're trying to point out, is that number is almost too specific to arrive at. I guess, like, how would they know with an ancient civilization like that? How could they possibly have worked it out for it to sort of end out that way? Or how are they aware of the to the degree of which they knew the solar system?
It's kind of beyond, like, you can't chalk that up as coincidence, not in my book. You can't just write that off. It was a very specific number, and it wasn't just a specific number that matched exactly the entire precession of the equinox, which is the wobble of our Earth's axis, but it also started and ended exactly on the day the sun set on the winter solstice, pointing directly at the center of the Milky Way galaxy. That's way too specific.
Now, I don't know the answer to that. That's why I'm going to ask Steve if he knows of any explanation. I'm not that familiar with that, so I couldn't say. But is there any, I guess, answers put forth, Steve, on why that would be, like how the Mayans would know the extent of what they knew?
They watched the stars. I mean, we've known for a while that the precession, because of the tilt of the Earth, is like 23 some odd degrees, right? 23 and a half degrees. So we know that as it spins, that the axial, if you point it right to Polaris, that's going to change over a period of time. So for 26,000 years, if you divide that by 12 zodiacal houses to be a complete circle, so every 2,160 years, you move from one house to another house, right? So that's moving into the age of Aquarius. But they've had to be able to, been able to see these things. I mean, so Mayans knew when to plant. Matter of fact, do you remember the steps on the pyramids that would only show like a dragon moving at a very specific time? They knew about the astronomical events. They knew the celestial sphere. They understood.
Shadow moved down.
Yeah, they understood the solstice. Right, exactly. So they did have an understanding of these topics, to say the least. I mean, even the analemma that you had pointed out, they understand that this was due to axial tilt causing a thing of the declination, and of course orbital eccentricity causing a differentiation in the right ascension. They knew these things. I mean, they had a very, very high skill set of level of mastery of astronomical observations.
That's amazing.
The Mayan calendar is said to be the most accurate calendar humans have ever created.
Yeah, no doubt.
People are amazing. What they're able to. That's why I clung to the Sphinx thing for so long, because I think that people are capable of a lot more than you just don't stop and think about that. Like this civilization that had no electricity, had no way of seeing beyond their eyesight into the sky, were able to do these sort of things. It's mind blowing, I think.
So when a Muslim jihadi blows himself up or martyrs himself and he thinks he's going to get 72 virgins, that 72 virgins refers to things in the sky. It's 72 years for 1 degree of precession, and each year you get a Virgo, a Leo, a Scorpio. You get one of each of the houses all year long. It rolls through all the houses. That's why we have 12 months for the 12 zodiacal signs. But critically, the critical zodiac sign is the constellation Virgo, the Virgin Mother, who gives birth to the sun. Quite literally, the sun is right in her womb. And I'll show you, I've got a slide that we'll come across here shortly. And so it's basically every year you get a Virgo, you get a Virgin. Those for every year of the zodiacal precession for 1 degree of precession. You get 72 virgins. So 72 virgins gives you 1 degree of precession. And that's why, because I've always wondered why 72? That's a strange number. Why do you get 72 virgins? It took me a long time to figure that one out.
Well, it kind of makes sense in a way. I mean, I'm looking at the math here. So if you did 2,160 years, then for 30 degrees, it would take 1 degree per 72 years. Okay, but other things I'm looking at also claims that it is 1 per 71 years. One thing here, what rate of precession is 1 degree in 50 years. Beck, 1961. It seems to have not really a fixed number. I mean, 72 is an estimate, so it's not like it's exactly 72. There seems to be some discrepancies on the accuracy of that measurement. So if they're planning on 72, they might get like 71 and a half virgins or something, which really disconcerting.
Half, and you can have half, and I can have half.
Yeah, I mean, some of them are saying 50.3 seconds of arc per year for 1 degree. So there seems to be a little bit of variation in that particular number. Here's 1 degree every 72.2 years for a 26,000 year cycle. So I'm getting a lot of variation in that particular number. I think 72 is a really rough estimate.
Well, like I said, the Mayan calendar is considered the most accurate calendar. It traces a 25,920 year cycle. You divide that by 360 degrees of wobble, and you divide 360 into 25,920, and it is exactly 72.
So somebody asked me this in the live chat. Somebody asked in the live chat. It's a good question because I've always wanted to. There's 12 houses, but there's actually 13 zodiacal signs. Ophiuchus is considered to be the 13th zodiacal sign. So how does that fit in?
I've got a slide that includes Ophiuchus because Ophiuchus is an integral part of this whole story. First of all, Ophiuchus is the 13th zodiacal sign. In Egypt, it was considered a 5-day month. So in Egypt and before in Assyria, Babylon, they were working with the sexagesimal system, which was a base 12 system. Mm-hmm. And so in Egypt, the month of Ophiuchus was a 5-day period, which is why we have 360 plus 5. We have 365-day year currently, not counting leap year. So they were working with a 360 degree, like a 360-degree circle. That was their year, plus a 5-day period. In Egypt, it was a 5-day period where no endeavors were to be undertaken. You don't take on new business ventures. You don't get involved in any projects. It was like a 5-day festival. Everybody chilled out. So the month of Ophiuchus was in Egypt was a 5-day period, and so the zodiacal sign of Ophiuchus is an extremely important part of the whole story, really. And by the way, Ophiuchus is the wrestler. He wrestles the serpent, and we're going to get to that. In fact, let's go there now. Kyle, let's go to the batch of images under Mary, or the Virgin Mary.
Okay. Which one do you want to
start looking at those images? Really doesn't matter. Let's start. It doesn't even have a name. It's got a number. 201602111. We'll just start there.
That one.
Sorry for you. It's turned sideways. I don't know how that happened. Anyway, this is ISIS, and on my screen you're sharing. It's not very clear. I'll open up this image and I'll just read what it says. Basically, this is an image of ISIS. She is the Alpha and the Omega. Above this image, it says, "I, Isis, am all that is, has been, that is, or shall be. No mortal man hath ever me unveiled." And hopefully, at least for you guys, and maybe after the video uploads, and hopefully for the viewers, if you look behind Isis's head, there's a circle. It is the Ouroboros. It's the serpent eating its tail, which is a clear sign that this image of Isis is referring to things in the sky, because the Ouroboros is the Milky Way galaxy. And in her right hand, she holds the scales. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, what you're seeing on your screen is what I'm feeding back to you on the vMix level. What everybody's seeing is 1080p crystal clear, so they're able to see everything in good detail. Okay, cool. So, cool. Okay, so you see the Ouroboros behind her head. You see that her right ear is the sun. Her left earring is the moon. On her breasts are grapes and wheat. So this is the harvest. And her right hand is the scales. So this is just another strong reference to things that are happening, Guy. So go ahead and go to the next slide, and I'll just talk whichever one it is. Okay, this is the Assumption of Mary. This is a very famous piece of artwork called the Assumption of Mary. This is Mary being taken up into heaven. What you'll see at her feet are 12 cherubs, 12 full-bodied. Now there are little faces in the clouds, but below her feet are 12 complete cherubs. So there's your 12. Those are your zodiac sign. She's in the sky. She's in the clouds. So this is happening in the sky. And what I want you to pay close attention to is the cherub on the far right. He's handing her a chaff of wheat. Everybody see that? Mm-hmm.
Okay, go to the next slide. Keep in mind the chaff of wheat. This is a tarot card. This is the High Priestess. She's flanked by the two Freemasonic columns, Jachin and Boaz, black and white, day and night. Behind her is the harvest of wheat and berries and grapes. At her feet is the moon, and somewhere I've got a biblical passage that refers to the virgin with the moon at her feet. Bear with me a second, I'll try to find that. But this is another really, really important part. First of all, she's got the moon at her feet. She's wearing a white underdress, and she's wearing a blue robe, which is a very common theme when you see Mary. The other image was the same thing. She had a white dress with a blue cloak. Just go ahead and go to the next slide. We'll move quickly because I know we've got a lot of time. Here's another image of the Virgin Mary. This is a statue. She's wearing a white dress with the blue cloak. Her white dress has the sun symbols. She's standing on an orb, which has stars, which is the sky. And at her feet, if you look very, very closely, she's trampling a serpent. Trampling a serpent. It's very faint, it's thin, but she's got her feet standing on a serpent. Go to the next slide, because this is a reoccurring theme. Just skip, go to the next slide. Here's another image of Mary. Let me open this one up so I can get a clearer image. Again, we have the Virgin Mary with the moon at her feet. And this time she has a red dress. Remember, women do menstruate, so women are associated with blood. She's again has the blue shawl, which is the sky. And look at the cherub on her right side. He's carrying a chaff of wheat. At her feet, she's standing on the moon. Again, she's trampling the serpent. Go ahead and go to the next slide while I try to get this image to close. Come on, come on. Come on, close, please. There we go. Again, we have the Virgin Mary. She's wearing a pink dress, not quite red, blue shawl again. Behind her are the clouds. At her feet, she's standing on a gray orb. That's the moon. Again, she's trampling the serpent. Go, move again.
Okay.
Again, the reoccurring theme, white dress, blue cloak. Now, what you'll see on this particular image on the top right corner is a decorative cornice, which looks very, very, very much like an open-mouthed lion. And that's because right next to the Virgin Mary, or the Virgo constellation, is the constellation Leo. At her feet, she's standing on an orb and trampling a serpent again. Behind her is the sun. Go ahead. I think, let's see, there's a couple you didn't get to.
Oh, we're not finished. This just popped in that order. It looks like the one that it's a little bit clearer than the one that we looked at earlier, but
Okay,
similar picture.
maybe I sent you two of them. Go ahead and go to the next one.
All right.
Okay, this is a screen grab from my software. You guys are probably familiar, the Stellarium app. What you see here is the Virgin Mary, the Virgo constellation, at the top center of the screen. The sun is right there in her abdomen. At her feet is highlighted the moon, and below her feet is the serpent of Ophiuchus. This is what you actually see in the sky. And this is why all the other images and artwork of Renaissance artwork, if you just go look at Renaissance art of the Virgin Mary, you'll see her with a chaff of wheat, the moon, the serpent, the sun. It's all there. Also, before we move on to the next slide, just to the right of the constellation Virgo is the constellation Crater, which is the chalice, otherwise known as the Holy Grail. And then also is Corvus. And if we get to the right slide, I'll show you where Corvus shows up in the Mary artwork.
That's kind of cool, though, how the correlation to all that.
So go ahead and go to the next slide, and if it comes up, there it is. Okay, so there's Mary with the red and blue again. Let me see. The man that is knelt down in front of her is carrying a chaff of wheat. Let me open this up clear so I can make sure of all the details. There's an interesting aspect, and I haven't really figured this one out totally. But if you look under the feet of Mary, oh, first of all, she is standing on the moon. If you look carefully, crescent moon under her feet. But underneath of her dress is looks like a little face, like a little, I don't know, elf or dwarf or something hiding in the little crevice right above that rock.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure that is a golem, and I haven't quite figured out how he fits in. Also, Mary's cloak is not only blue, but it's studded with stars again, because again, we are talking about things in the sky.
What is a golem?
A golem is a clay figure. This is an ancient Semitic or Hebrew tradition of creating a clay figure and then breathing the breath of life into it.
It's a Jewish mysticism.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not like Gollum from Lord of the Rings.
No,
Actually,
it's a clay. Well, that was not taken from that. Because the golem in Jewish mysticism is made directly out of clay and then enchanted into having
right.
animation, but no sentient.
Right.
Not sentient.